Developing a successful trader's mindset is quite possibly the most important aspect of becoming consistently profitable. A trader can have the best strategy in the world, but if you've not trained your mind to cope with the pressures of live trading, then success will forever be out of reach. And there are several reasons why traders fail to replicate the results from a simulated environment once they go live. And these reasons, of course, involve emotional trading, but they can also involve your own self-limiting beliefs. Most people don't even realize they have these self-limiting beliefs until they start trading. So as it turns out, we don't just have limiting beliefs, but limiting beliefs end up having us. And that's what we're going to try and explore in this lesson. Now, in one of the lessons, when I started talking about trader psychology, we dealt with the reasons behind emotions. So what they are, where they come from. But here I'm going to talk about the biology of emotions. I'm going to talk about monitoring your thoughts and then also exploring your current beliefs. If you want to become good at trading, you really need to understand yourself a lot deeper. Most people are not actually aware why emotions happen in the first place. So in that first psychology lesson, you learn about the types of emotions and how all the emotions come from the limbic system rather than the prefrontal cortex. But did you also know that your thoughts are nothing more than the product of those emotions? They're not actually a conscious effort of you trying to think about a particular thing. Quite the opposite. They're just random things that sort of pop into your head, driving that internal dialogue. Now, the internal dialogue is a funny thing because it's directly related to our internal beliefs. Internal beliefs are not created when you're an adult. They're created when you're still a child, depending on your personal circumstances. So these beliefs that we have as adults going into adulthood, they were shaped by how you viewed the world before you were even able to speak. So to become a success in trading, you need to start exploring those beliefs. And most of us have some sort of limiting belief. And this is potentially the hardest part of trading. This is a journey of self-discovery. And this is why you need your body to function at peak levels, so that the rational brain is as accessible as possible when you're trading. To remind you, a little revision of that first psychology lesson, once your emotions are in full force, your rational brain becomes inaccessible. Once the emotion is in full force, you don't have a single rational thought in your head. Now, in some other jobs, survival instinct can actually work in your favor. So when we were children, most of us are taught that if things are going wrong, you just need to keep pushing, you need to keep working harder, you need to do longer hours, and then success will eventually come. Well, trading is the exact opposite of this. So instead of the survival instinct and fight or flight working in your favor, it becomes this like personal crusade with the markets. Fear being obviously the first thing that drives the bad trading decisions. And it generally leads to revenge trading, anger, frustration. Some people hesitate if they have that risk-averse nature. And then eventually, a lot of people end up with these psychological traumas and even more limiting beliefs. They start thinking that they're not worthy, that they have this sense of inadequacy. They start feeling like victims. They start having doubts and a myriad of other negative feelings towards yourself. Now, this can lead to even more problems until eventually people give up and convince themselves, more than anyone, that trading is not for them. But don't get me wrong, trading definitely isn't for everyone. I've said this over and over. However, if you've come from a particular background and you've had lots of success in your life, especially as a software developer or a pro athlete or semi-pro athlete or a highly skilled musician, then the only reason why you might have failed to succeed in trading up until now will be the psychology and the lack of observation of your own thoughts that ultimately end up driving the trading decisions in the live environment. So 90% of people do fail as traders, not just because of lack of strategy and lack of reviewing the previous performance, but also because they never learn how to master the fear. They never learn how to control it. And until you can master how you respond to fear, fear will block any development. The problem with fear is because it comes from such a primal side of us, the primal brain cannot tell the difference between actual death threat and a simple psychological discomfort. To the primal brain, it's exactly the same thing. The first step to mastering your emotions is to label your fear. What is it that you're actually afraid of? So here's a list of some of the most common reasons. When you're going through this process, you have to learn to be very honest with yourself. And you have to really pin down what is your biggest fear. Write it down. Run a journal. Write it all down. Think about your past decisions and results in trading. So go over them in your mind and remember the outcome. I then want you to examine what is it that was driving your behavior. Focus most on the trades that went horribly wrong, because you need that extreme experience to really understand yourself and where you're coming from. So write down what it is that you fear most. Being aware of where your fear comes from will help you going forward to learn how to control it. Now keep in mind that your thoughts and your beliefs are not you, okay? They come from that primal side of you, and you are a separate being from whatever randomly pops in your head. When you're a trader, you really need to start stepping outside of yourself and then objectively observing what is going on up here. Now I want to give you this practical formula, this proactive formula to be proactive with your thoughts, emotions, and with your internal dialogue as well. So let's say you start your trading day, you've done your market prep, you know which level you're looking at, but new information comes into the markets and suddenly everything starts moving in front of you. A lot of the people feel a rush of excitement and the need to get involved, an impulse to jump in. And then the heart rate increases. So now you're at risk at fight or flight response kicking off. Now, once you either feel your heart rate going up or you first feel an emotion, your emotion starts to rev up, please go through these 6 steps. First step, and this is the hardest part, stopping yourself in the moment, in the heat of the moment, to control whatever's happening next. So number 2 is to observe your own reaction. So you step outside of yourself and you pretend that you're looking from the outside in. Step 3 is to question which emotion this reaction is coming from. I then want you to write it down in your journal and then stop trading, move away from your trading desk and disrupt emotion with exercise. You have to keep doing the exercise, the weightlifting, until the emotion has completely disappeared. Only then you can resume trading. Now, right up there with fear is our beliefs. They are what forms our thoughts. Our beliefs are formed when we're still toddlers, believe it or not, based on the world around us. Now, I came from a very loving home, right? My parents were wonderful. I have one older sister. But when I was very young, because my sister was so much older than me, I kept getting told by my parents that my older sister is just better at everything. And of course she was. She's 10 years older than me. But in my little young head back then, this actually led to a sense of inadequacy as an adult. And this turned me into an overachiever. So whatever I do, I never do halfway. Somewhere down the line, I don't know when this happened, but somewhere down the line, it all stopped being about the competition with my sister, and yet I carried on pushing myself with everything that I do. And to be honest, this sense of inadequacy never really became evident to me or anyone around me. I was just an overachiever. It's just how I was. But then I started trading, and it kind of hit me across the face in full force. So here are some of the most common self-limiting beliefs. The first one is sense of inadequacy. The thought patterns that usually come with sense of inadequacy is usually, I'll never be smart enough, I'll never be good enough, and then trading specific, my losses are my reflection of how bad I am at everything. The second one is feeling like a victim. So it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault. It's the market's fault, it's the partner's fault, and nothing I do ever makes a difference. I'm not responsible for my own actions. Then the third one is sense of not being important. So you have thoughts that you have to do very well in life to prove that you're worth something. And frequently comes with self-loathing, self-deprecating thoughts, and all of that. And finally, there's feeling unworthy. Some of the thought patterns that come with this particular belief is that you have to do well in life or no one else is going to respect you, and that you will have no value to the society and no meaning to your life if you don't do well. Now, on top of all of these self-limiting beliefs, as if it's not hard enough, we also have our inner critic that never shuts up and it loves to put us down. So it's that voice inside of you that's constantly judging you, criticizing, sometimes tempting you, predicting doom and gloom and all of that. Some psychologists will tell you to try and turn the volume down in your head of this voice, but that really didn't work for me. So the way I deal with it is to imagine the inner critic talking in a really ridiculous voice. And I used to be a fan of Muppet Show when I was a child. So, and there's this one particular individual that I never took seriously. Not that I took any of them seriously, but there's this one particular Muppet that sounds utterly ridiculous. And it's Beaker. And if you don't really know who it is, because you might be a little bit younger than me, this is who Beaker is. And the way he sounds, it's literally and that's all he says. So anytime I have an inner voice saying, you cannot do this, what do you think, who do you think you are? And I imagine it going, who do you think you are? Who do you think? And it works. It's great. Like the inner voice loses all hold over me. And then on the other side of the negative internal dialogue, there's your ego. It's completely to the other side of your inner critic, and we all have it. Maybe some spiritual people have managed to minimize it to the point of it being perceived as non-existent, but trust me, everyone has an ego. So an ego involves the need to always be right. So in trading, this usually leads to marrying your positions, which means not wanting to let go of a trade. Doesn't matter how bad it turns, and it's already gone through your planned stop loss, you keep increasing the stop loss, you're still stubbornly holding on to it, and you still won't let go. So that's your ego. There's no doubt about that. The second type of ego manifestation is caring what others think of you. Most other people are so self-involved and they don't care. They don't care about other people. So relax, do whatever you want. Entitlement is the next one. A huge problem with millennials, they've come into corporate environments. If you want to be a trader, you have to actively deal with this because markets don't owe you anything. You cannot have profits just because you want them and because it's not fair and stuff like that. It's just how it is, right? Life is life. Life is largely not fair. And unfortunately, because of the way we formed the society over the last 20 years, you have adults that are now starting jobs in corporate environments that are very cold, and yet they don't deal very well with this. You also have some people who come from extremely privileged backgrounds, and their experience as toddlers was that most of the things you wanted were simply given to you. Then the next ego manifestation is being offended when someone criticizes or offends you. There's constructive criticism, obviously, which you should take on board and not take it as a personal attack. But then if somebody really does end up offending you, the insults are always only a reflection of a person who's doing the insults. And always remember that if you do react, it solves nothing. In fact, it makes the bad situation worse. So instead of making everything worse, try to take that step back. Maybe use the proactive formula even in real life when a challenging situation comes up. Stop, take a minute to reflect, and then decide how you're going to respond. Then you have the need to defend yourself in a conversation or an argument, kind of similar to being offended. And this side of ego in people comes up quite a lot in trading, especially when they break the risk parameter rules. And this is why trading for prop trading company is an entirely different game. It really puts you in your place. Like, it shows you some humility. Then the next one is feeling good about yourself when someone praises you. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but in trading it can translate into overconfidence. So feeling great about your trade wins. Because obviously it hits the pleasure center and then strokes your ego as well. And that's a very slippery slope. You're not supposed to be happy when you're winning a trade. Celebrating trade wins would be exactly the same as celebrating every time you get a salary or paycheck. Now, when it comes to pep talk, it's another thing. See, sometimes traders have really bad days. And, as a risk manager, if someone does have a bad day, I'm not going to make it worse by telling them how crap they were that day. So if they had a bad day, I usually start by asking them, okay, what happened? Tell me. And then I give them a chance to kind of just start pouring their soul out, usually. Especially in the beginning, you will make rookie mistakes. You might make a mistake on the stop loss size, or, you didn't realize that the level is not quite right, or, things can happen. So I'm usually quite lenient in the first sort of 3-4 months of a trader working with us. And then next one is similar, so feeling very good about yourself, eventually in some people leads to feeling above everyone else. The next ego manifestation is trying to be someone. This one is a bit of an odd one because it usually stems from a low self-esteem. And then they want other people to recognize their worth. But I would really start by recognizing your own self-worth before asking for validation from others. And then the last one is also an ego thing where you keep reliving the past in your mind. A dangerous one, especially when it comes to psychological traumas and stuff, because let's say you look at the trade and you got a bit panicky, so you take the trade off the table. Identify the cause behind why you did it and let it go. If you just decide to put the ego in there and just go, it's how I am, I cannot control it, it's nonsense. You can always control it. You can always change yourself. You can always strive to be the better version of you. No one is that set in their ways to not be able to change themselves, no matter how old you are. You're only set in your ways up here, okay? So now that we've been through your emotional state, negative thoughts, self-limiting beliefs, inner critic, ego manifestations, and once you're now able to understand some of that, you can start to develop the positive, deliberate thoughts and actions. So random thoughts are bad, deliberate thoughts are good. And some of the things that you will strive to develop is courage, to obviously face your fears and deal with them. Self-discipline, big one in life in general, but in trading especially. So that's to be able to stop yourself from taking action that resulted from negative, irrational side of you. Objectivity, also a big one in trading, because you have to be objective in your trading decisions. If you're wrong, you need to recognize that you are wrong, okay? You cannot just keep going. And of course, the final one is self-compassion, to forgive yourself, to give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up. Don't identify your self-worth through your trading performance. So really, to achieve any kind of long-term change, there are 5 steps to successful trading. Controlling your emotions, being mindful of your internal dialogue, disrupting your self-limiting beliefs actively, minimizing your ego, and inviting a deliberate thought process that eventually all lead to an organized trading mind. And that's what the end goal is. Markets are not a threat, they're not a battlefield, there's no lion out to get you, and the markets, for the large part, they're not even aware of you. So next time you sit at your trading desk, leave your sword above the mantelpiece, you won't be needing it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You really need to create your zen when you're trading. And that brings me to the next slide. Your trading desk. Please don't trade casually from your sofa, especially if you're first starting out. Maybe once you've been in the game professionally and you've had years and years of an upward curve, yeah, you can execute your trade from a sofa on your laptop. But until such time, please designate a quiet place to put your trading desk without the TV, without the distractions. Consider this a serious job, okay? Not to mention that, if you have young children or pets, they can walk over your laptop and accidentally execute a 100-lot trade. So don't do that. So one thing that I notice quite a lot is traders who work remotely, they are quite keen to take care of children and babies whilst they're trading. And we've had a number of times when this resulted in accidental trades that went into a ridiculous amount of losses. Then we had another person whose child spilled their juice all over the keyboard, so the buttons weren't working properly, so they couldn't close a trade, and he didn't put a stop loss on because he just executed a trade. Again, total mess. And when it comes to eating and drinking at the table, I generally try only to have water, and I try to stay away from all sticky drinks. If I must have something, I will make sure that the lids are on, because I also had a bad experience. I was eating breakfast and I spilled my latte all over my keyboard and accidentally executed a trade that was 10 times the size than I meant to execute because the zero got stuck. My total loss for that day was £250,000. So don't do that. And then if you throw emotions into the mix along with your life savings that you're trying to trade, and then see whether you'll be able to do it from your sofa while the spouse is shouting at the rest of the children, or trying to soothe the screaming baby, or cooking, or trying to train the dog, or shouting at the dog, or even asking the questions such as, hey, how's the trading going? So, if you have a chaotic environment at home, try to designate a part of your home exclusively for your trading area, as far away from the distractions as possible. Like I'm being very, very serious about this. You'll need a lot of determinations to make trading work. But eventually trading should become Zen-like. Many successful people tend to have an aura of confidence around them. It's because we're not working from a fear-based mindset. So if you want to become a successful trader, entrepreneur, or generally a good business person, you have to work on yourself to get there. Trading is a job. It's a very serious job at that as well. So please respect it and treat it as such.